AI is becoming an increasingly important part of our lives. Tools such as ChatGPT, Copilot, and other similar systems are now part of everyday life at school and at work and in our personal lives. So it's important because they're such an important part of our lives that we know how to use AI responsibly. So that's an essential skill for us moving forward. Depending on the class that you're taking, AI is either allowed or not allowed, or allowed in some ways. I know for the classes that I teach, AI is allowed, but there are restrictions, and there usually will be restrictions. It's important that you consult your professor and look at the syllabus for your class. So if we use AI ethically and transparently, which means we let people know we're using it, it can be used to support learning, and it can be a good thing for sure. So before we get into this any further, let's talk about what AI is and what AI is not. So AI is not intelligent in any kind of way that we would understand that term. Instead, AIs are gigantic pattern recognition systems. So they've been trained on data and they turn the data into patterns. So these patterns are stored out there somewhere, and when we make a prompt or a query to the system, it will format our question as a pattern. It will then search through all of its data to find the answer pattern that best matches uh, what our question was. Okay, so that's the basic idea. It will then generate from that a response, whether it's a piece of writing or a code or an image or a sound or whatever, that it thinks meets that goal. Okay. So it doesn't understand what it's doing at all. It doesn't understand what your intent is, what the product's going to be used for, or what your learning goals are. It can 100% produce answers that are not correct. Okay. And it will do so with great confidence. It'll tell you 100% this is correct when it's not. I had one of the AIs tell me once that 25 was a prime number, and 25 is most certainly not a prime number. So what can AI help with? We'll talk some more concrete ideas later, but this is just a beginning overview. It can help us to brainstorm ideas. So if you have a project for a class and you're not sure which direction to take, you can ask AI to give you some sample topics that may be useful. Of course, you'll have to run them by your professor, but if you're really stuck, it can be helpful. It can also help you to explain concepts that are unclear to you. Maybe your professor or the textbook couldn't get it through your head exactly what needs to happen. So you can ask, okay? You can use it to suggest approaches that you could take to solve the problem, where to go for answers, what strategies to use. And it can also be used to help find errors in your work, whether that's grammar errors or coding errors. So there are some ethical considerations that we have to keep in mind as we're using AI systems. And the first is that the systems produce information that is incorrect or misleading, um, and we have to be able to deal with that. So how do we deal with that? We have to make sure that we are taking the responsibility for the accuracy of our work. So we don't believe anything that it says. Okay, you have to check that. So in particular, some of the issues are things such as bias and oversimplification. Um, as I've said, the AI patterns are created from being trained on text documents primarily and images from the open internet. And we all know that the open internet is not a safe place to be sometimes, right? There's a lot of information out there that can be biased. It could have racial bias, it could have gender bias, it could be biased against a certain group or a certain field. Misinformation abounds. So you have to make sure that this does not get into your work by taking responsibility for that information. We are concerned about authorship here. It still matters who wrote things. So when you present AI generated work as your own, you have not followed an appropriate thought process, it's not your work. You can't defend it. You can't know that it's correct. And the last thing that's in a note here at the bottom is we have to be concerned about the environmental impact of AI. AI data centers can use massive amounts of electricity and water and other resources and release lots of polluting gases and other things into the environment. And that's not good. There are technical solutions to most of these problems that, for example, cooling systems that don't require water, um, using cleaner energy for the electricity. And those solutions are there, but currently the AI companies are not being forced to use them. So this is really a policy issue, at least in the US. So what can you do about the environmental cost? One thing, I guess, is we don't use AI trivially. I mean, so take it seriously. There's a cost, even if you're using a free version, there's a cost somewhere down the line to someone. We can also, as we're choosing our AI tools, look to find companies that have expressed an interest and are actually putting dollars toward having less environmental impact of their AI data centers. I think that's important. I think the last thing we can do is we can consider using local AI resources. There's a product called Ollama, Ollama. I think it's ollama.com. It allows you to download a program for Mac or for Windows that you can then run various AIs locally on your system. These are not as powerful typically as a Chat GPT, for example, but they're still pretty good, and you can use it for a lot of your work. And once it's been trained, you're not taking any additional energy except what your computer's using. So that can certainly make things a lot better. So academic integrity. So we have here on the left Thomas Jefferson at a computer. Thomas Jefferson, because in the University of Virginia system, we have a picture of Thomas Jefferson in all of our classrooms with the honor code, right? So here's an example of AI generated images. I asked ChatGPT to create an image of Thomas Jefferson using a computer in the style of a painting from that era, which it did. This gets back to the ownership here. I don't really own this image. Uh, ChatGPT doesn't own the image. It's some weird collaboration, and legally it's all up in the air. So you got to be careful with that. As far as academic integrity, the rules still apply. You still have to do your own work. You still can't get help from somebody else. So AI doesn't change that. And it really comes down to you have to understand what it is that you're submitting, and you have to be able to explain your own work. And that's really what it comes down to for me. I know in a programming class, this last part, if a student submits a program that looks like that's a little advanced for where they've been before, I will ask them to explain it. If they can, life's probably okay. If not, then we have some serious trouble. So you have to make sure that you understand what it is that you've done. So again, what's not allowed? Copying and pasting the AI output into a Word document, into a PowerPoint presentation, anything like that, into a code window when you're making a program. Those are not allowed. Okay. Submitting AI as if it were your own work is a violation. It's the very definition of plagiarism in that you're turning in work that is not your own. Whose is it? It may be nobody's, but it's still not your own. The other bigger issue here that we can't forbid directly, and that's using AI to avoid learning the material. So for most courses, the kinds of homework or assignments that you can use AI on are not all you're going to be evaluated on. So if you're in my programming class and we're covering pointers and you just don't get it or don't have the time to mess with it, you have AI to generate all your homework. Well, you're going to see pointers again on quizzes, on exams, on in-class work. And if you don't learn it, there will be consequences. So the things that are allowed with AI and encouraged even with care, got to be careful. Using AI to clarify concepts. So you've covered something in class, you don't quite get it. You've asked the professor, they explain it again, doesn't help. Sometimes it's going to happen. You've read the textbook, you're not finding anything. You can ask an AI to explain it for you in a different way, and a different way, and a different way. Keep going till you get it. You can ask it to give you concrete examples. You can ask it to create a total new tutorial on the fly on a given topic, and it can do that. You can also use AI, and this has been growing for a while, starting with spell checkers and then grammar checkers, and then things like Grammarly, which are super duper grammar checkers. You can send a review of a paper you're writing through ChatGPT, ask for it to correct or not to correct, to point out grammar issues and to point out the strength of your argument or any breaks in continuity or whatever it is. What you do next is then the determination of whether it's ethical or not. If you take its results, cut and paste it into another document, turn it in, then you've broken the rules here. But if you take the input that the AI has given you, incorporate that into your work, and then tell somebody about it, and when you turn it in, I use this to point out some errors that I fixed on my own, then you're okay. I've also found the last item here that with computer programming, sometimes the errors are so subtle, all the normal ways we find them don't help. ChatGPT or any of the other AIs can be super helpful in finding those errors. Again, once the errors are found, it's up to you to correct them. You can't just take their solution and cut and paste it, but you should understand what the issue was. But often it's just a stray semicolon somewhere that you didn't expect. So that can cause trouble. So it's good to use it in these cases. It's important that you document your AI use. Again, this depends on the class, so it's important to talk to your instructor, look at the syllabus. But for the most part, I know for me, I'm going to want to know which tool you used, how you used it, and what role it played in the final product. So, for example, you could, if you're writing a program, you could say, I use ChatGPT to help me explain recursion and to suggest test cases. All the code and final explanations are my own. You put that, for me, it'd be a comment in the program. So I can see that's what I used it for. I have students do this all the time. It's a good thing. It does not hurt your grade at all. If it's a paper of some sort, you could say, I ask Claude to review my draft and suggest clearer wording. I decided which suggestions to accept and rewrote the final draft myself. The professor would want to hear that. It lets him know what you were doing, how you used it, and that you're taking responsibility for the work that you've done. So, as an example, at the bottom of this slide here, this presentation, I used ChatGPT for idea generation. I had the original idea that I put into a prompt explaining what I was doing and what my ideas were. It then suggested other things to add, some of which I did, some of which I didn't. And also the images were created by ChatGPT. So no questions. If I'm doing a tutorial for class, which I often do, just to help when the textbook isn't enough, or if a bunch of students have questions, I will often use an AI to create a first draft based on very precise, long, drawn out prompt. I will then go through and edit it so every word is mine. It says what I want it to say, how I want it to say it. For me, it's helps me to get it done quicker, and it helps me make sure I don't forget something. On a complex topic, there may be a subtopic that you forget. Those are all good things as long as you're upfront with it. So the final thoughts here are that AI is not going to go away. You can't just hide your head in the sand and say, I'm never going to use it. From what I've read in the workforce, AI is becoming more prevalent. The companies that are replacing people with AI are not having much success, and I don't think they will continue to have much success. What's happening instead is that companies are expecting their workers to be able to use AI to increase their productivity. Studies have shown that depending on the job, AI can increase productivity from between 10 and 50%. So it doesn't replace a person, but it does make you a lot more efficient. So that's important. A lot of jobs, especially now that the workforce doesn't have a lot of people in it with AI knowledge, the new hires are going to be expected to know something about AI. So it's certainly worth your effort to figure something out. The other issues here, you want to make sure that you learn something in a class. If you took a class, used AI exclusively, made an A in the class, that is not successful. The AI was misused. The AI already knows how to do whatever class you're doing, but you don't. Your transcript says you do, an employer expects that you do, your professors in the next class expect that you do, but you don't. That's a misuse of AI. The other parting thing to say here is that if you have a question in any class about whether your use of AI is appropriate or not, ask it before you turn in the assignment, hopefully before you've done much work on it. I think most professors, I know certainly for me, I would much rather have a discussion before the fact so I can give you guidance. This is okay, that's not okay, rather than have to deal with the consequences of going through an honors court violation. Honors court violations are a pain for everyone involved and very time consuming. So we want to avoid that when we can. So make sure that you use the tools adequately, ethically, safely, transparently, and that you discuss with your professors how you plan to use AI before you actually do. The final thought, if I can get back to it, maybe I can. The very first image on this screen here, I wanted to point out, I asked ChatGPT to create a self-portrait of itself. And interestingly enough, this is what it came up with. So take that for what it's worth. It looks very much like a little robot that was on the market for a while. So this could be a copyright violation. I don't know. ChatGPT may have inadvertently picked up some things I shouldn't have. Anyway, AI is a tool. Don't avoid it, but don't use it to cheat. Use it instead as a tool to make your work better and make you more productive.